Yeah, hello. Once me, it's me once again. So the end of the same one now for the updated Olympic bids. Okay. So right now, this is the end of for a startup for 2036, which is same for 2040 first, and then go to 2038 with only one bidder. And then I might plan to go use Olympics later on, so stay tuned for this for 2030 for the Youth Olympics. Let's start off with for 2036/2040, because I'm pretty sure it's going to copy. Possibly 2044 for one city, but that's unknown, so this makes sense. So so they started with the confirmed bids for 2036. In the 2040s, you have to confirm myself because I might be think that it's the website that exists right now for sure. For 2036, the ones that exist is New Centaur. Well, New Centaur is a green lit city in Indonesia on the island of Borneo. There, which is supposed to replace Jakarta because Jakarta is going to plan to go underwater in the future. This is because of the climate change contribute to global warming because of the sea rise, with the risking Jakarta is just simply on the floodplain to go underwater. So, yeah, New Centaur is they end up the new city there. But here's the problem with New Centaur is, Indonesia is a good spot for the Olympics, despite who Islam, which is going to be a problem with Islamic laws and the attributed that must make sense, but that's not the problem the way it is. The problem is New Centaur is checking on Google Maps of some sort. No venues, nada, just bunch of nada. And attribute to known order itself. So, wait this. Another one is in that bidder is in there is Istanbul. Istanbul does have videos of some sort. The problem is, it's kind of Istanbul is kind of under attack by the President Erdogan. Erdogan is kind of not exactly the nicest leaders these days, despite with issues with the Kurds. And even Turkey has issues on the Armenian genocide, and it end up which has been denied the whole long time. And now since Armenia is now joint sides with the West, is going to kind of redeem issue with the Armenian genocide to combat the life for Turkey, because it's been a long time dispute since World War One about Turkey to the end of it's been so it's kind of the world's longest violation of human rights on record is the Armenian genocide represent for Turkey. So see why. So and also technically Turkey has also started a genocide against Assyrians too. The Assyrian genocide was also made in the Ottomans, so it was also disputed because of that the genocide against Assyrians back in World War One as well. So yes, it's good for multiple violations. And then at this point, before Turkey even got independence. Now these days, Erdogan is going to go for projects and they might cause a crippling in the Turkish economy, which would cause multiple issues as well. So this kind of makes sense. Next up is this now updated version of India's bid, which is Ahmedabad. Yes, I mentioned Ahmedabad in the recent videos in the past about the way it is, how does it's this tribute to bid with the mega project sport complex known as the Sports Enclave of some sort, which in the names of will not even try to pronounce. Also, right top as well. And my top as well, it's possible. At this point, yeah, India is because issues of the India-Pakistan war earlier, which is now on ceasefire, not at peace, because it's in the conflict for over 40 years. Oh, I think over 50 years by now. So it just makes sense. No, otherwise. Also, they found out recently India has to go through the complete. Well, has a not a nice record in sport events in the recent past Olympics by coaching staff of some sort. So that means not only the government of Turkey is a little bit corrupt, so is the Turkish Olympic Committee is also corrupt. So you kind of say right now, which is gonna harm the bid for India though. So this is gonna make sense because of double corruption. Because they can only have Moody, also they had to go for a huge amount of corruption. There's also the Indian Olympic committees could also go through a huge amount of corruption. So let's see why for Ahmedabad. Anyways, this makes sense. So they had to keep posted at this point. Also, they're in the cautious dialogue too for Ahmedabad, which it's because of the LOI, which is letter of intent, which is a non-binding letter to the sent to the IOC to still allow them host. The problem is though, we do not have any records of it yet for they have safe enough for human rights, especially since India has history. Because the end, most of the population is under the poverty line, which, if you know already, is under the so which means is in the poverty is becoming an issue for India though. Also, with my topic as well, India is might be have issues relate towards infrastructure and infrastructure is not exactly the way they encode in the most government legal to host the Olympics. So these days, yet if Ahmedabad does win, they have a lot of work to do to try to make it allow safe to hold Olympics, especially since in the region it's technically a possible war zone. So it's to see why. So yeah, so but keep it in mind. Another bit of looking isn't it just which is one last of the confirmed side of 2036 is San Diego. San Diego, Chile, is technically in the earthquake zone. Yeah, in the this zone, which is a Nazca plate connects to the South American plate there, it's declared to the one out of five areas of the most dangerous ethnic zones to get on Earth. Right next towards San Andreas, Nondai, and even Alaska. So yeah, so even Chile is the end has history on a 9.5 magnitude earthquake though. In its history back in 1960. This is a little bit of concern for Santiago because of earthquake safety during the Olympics. So it kind of makes sense. So it is because this is on the most dangerous seismic zones in the end to get. And then on top of the aging state infrastructure and then the infrastructure of some sort gives to the end of the main issue. Yeah, Chile's history has been kind of back and forth. Even the gospel poets tell the era is kind of cause major violations of human rights. Although they got this shit under control, thanks to Gabriel Bullock, and then they took over office and they really fixed over Chile so well. And so kind of say well, now Gabriel Bullock is somehow kind of fixed Chile some sort of in the from the heavy considerate rule and even fascist rule back then. So yeah. Oh, here's the thing right now. Gabriel Bullock is in the try to hold the Olympics and they after this is end up after they took into office and preachers have a little bit of hard time right now. He was in San Diego, so there's some sort. It is like short at this point. And here's some other potential bids of some sort. Anyway. Africa might tell you later in 2040. We need to see why. Going into Asia right now, they got the northern Jeolla province in South Korea. It was supposed to be Seoul's bid, but they kind of decided to go south. That's unlikely to win at the end of it for South Korea though, because, well, technically, South Korea is kind of recently held Pyeongchang for 2018. This is for 2036 because it's been back on course with this. The problem is South Korea is technically this is in the region that has never hosted the Big Olympics. The only Big Olympics that South Korea hosted before is Seoul. But here's the Northern Jeolla province is the only area has never hosted a multi-sport event in South Korea, so it's a little harder for them to win. But anyways, it makes sense. So it's unlikely for them to win at this point. Next one's Doha, Qatar. Yes, Qatar that they held the 2022 FIFA World Cup and even held the next FIBA Basketball World Cup too. Qatar hosted the 2006 Asian Games and even upcoming 2030 Asian Games, which are doing return back to Doha. Doha comes to 80 to huge championship business just to win it. Just to an extent. Doha is spikes in the Middle East and it end up on the Arabian Peninsula. It has history of issues so that they relate to the monarchy. So it makes sense. In spite, give you kind of a little bit of clues. Human rights and others is not exactly a big concern. Which is already is. The main issue about Qatar is going to be the scene later on. It makes sense. So yeah, they're gonna tell you later about that because they had to as a next bidder. So Qatar is potentially the good bidder in there despite hosting the Asian Games. But the main issue that might tell you the later on with the next bidder is gonna be my concern. Oh yeah, the next bidder is about to say right now is Royal Saudi Arabia. Yeah, like Doha, you're about to say right now. Both Doha and Raya has issues of sports washing. If you do not know what the hell sports washing is, yeah, doing sport events in like every great examples like Saudi Arabia, they hold the Champions City in the very fine. There was no record at all. The problem is, sports washing they literally had no bad record to the tribute hosting events, but overlines the issues related to human rights and huge amount of corruption, or something very very bad. Is to just try to cover up and they just because they're trying to host the event. This cover up might go backfire in the future that this comes to be. This is kind of similar situations going on in Morocco for the FIFA World Cup, and even the Serbia games in the 1980s also been hugely covered up for some sort has been heavily involved sports washed. This is the kind of the Saudi Arabia is a good textbook definition of sports washing in this bid, which is to try to cover up all this issues just to hold the Olympics. So, which is kind of secreted by the monarch, and they try to keep it quiet, and they end to keep it clean, and they end up to host the Olympics in Saudi Arabia either way. Especially this also have the most technological games they ever seen yet. so they just come to be. Raya is also hosting the only 2029 Asian Winter Games in it was Chojora, it's now known as still as Neon, which is technically Neon is technically where the line is, so this is which is a huge city. It's technically a huge city. Long A say it doesn't look like a straight line, so it doesn't make sense. Which is part of Saudi Arabia's mega project, and at the end doesn't make sense. So yeah. Anyway, now to get to the new bid that I might be have to say one though is what the hell? You know they kind of say one now. Even though this is really the most controversial bid I ever seen. Anyway, it's really most controversial. If you know 2022 Winter Olympics really well, it kind of feels deja vu. Here it is. The new bid that just came in recently is known as Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. A three-nation bid, which I had never seen before in the Olympics. But here's the thing one now. Well, Guangdong hosted the 2010 Asian Games. That they end up, which as a time is the most successful Asian Games yet. So yeah, to enter into the 2010s decade. And yeah, Guangdong still holds the record to be the most successful Asian Games on record. It's located in Communist China. As you know, Communist China has a not a very nice record itself. So they relate to politics and otherwise, in geopolitics too. Here it is. Let me name the few already that know what's going on. Yeah, well, here it is. Communist China has history of, technically, not being very nice to the U.S. So I kind of say one now. So Communist China has history to being not absolutely nice to the U.S. It kind of makes sense, not only with the trade war and even multiple attempts, or also in the end of trying to avoid avoid to the end of trying to do anything with the U.S. And let's see why. Oh yeah, the people say China's issues are eliminated because of Trump, right? Well, no. Yeah, China's issues it goes even beyond before Trump. Back to the time when I think in this issues goes. Well, it did fix together on these Nixon and others, but the problem is it's going downward spiral underneath the Reagan administration and even George H.W. Bush's administration, causing the relations of the U.S. and China to extremely sour, and then they did not recover since then. Hell, I think I know President Trump almost fixed it up, and then he destroyed it during his second term. So yeah, so it kind of makes sense. Anyway, what China is right now is technically Husk himself during the golden age of China, which is sort of right in the middle of the Cold War. So they need to see why. Technically, China has a poverty issue with the poverty bubble, which is one issue. Two is factories that are going to be shut down in China. It's actually irrecoverable because of the trade war. And the components, if any factory closes down in China, it will never reopen ever again. So it causes another issue too. A failed Belt and Road initiative to try to supposedly rival America's Marshall Plan, which is determined a complete failure in China. So, as you know, also right top of that, in the try to stop every country's money because of the defeat for their government. Yes, they literally had to technically stole a country's economy just to feed their own, which is technically fraud. As you know, and yeah, and even the Uyghur issues, Tibet issues, and as you know, and yeah, this list goes on and on. And then I'm going to tell you two more issues. Yeah, and issues that needs on President Xi Jinping, which just became with controversial issues too to relate his list of issues, and the potential war in Taiwan. So, which that might cause sanctions over China and to prevent it to be entered into Olympics or even hosting it either. Even the FIFA World Cup as well, and others too. The reason we're trying to go for the same amount of sanctions as it did for Russia. And yeah, they might do it for years because of Taiwan. So, because the issues related to Taiwan is so controversial, is to see why. And yeah, it's also Japan to co-host with the SARs, which plan to be next in the 2040s, which kind of give you a little bit of clue right now what we're looking at here. Here it is. Yeah, Macau does have a Paralympic team at this point, but they don't have Olympic one, so it kind of makes sense. So Hong Kong, yeah, that was Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is again was a British colony back then. No harm, no foul until they transferred in the 90s to China. Hong Kong these days is in to be recognized as the most controversial. So the most controversial city in all of China. Let's see why. Yes. Yeah, Hong Kong did going to go down the right direction until China somehow to say choke its neck and to put back in their own demand. So Hong Kong was doing the right thing is to try to leave China, and then just decide to China that decides no, not you let you do that. We never let one China policy. Yet you know independence for you. So yep, Hong Kong almost got independence until China kind of stripped them as some sort. Most harshly, that means any independence supporters of the embassy in Hong Kong were transferred to re-education camp just to WA in return for life. That means, yeah, so that means, yeah, Hong Kong does have extremely strong independence movement. The problem is, yeah, they're kind of afraid to go further than that. My channel might be taken down by a bunch of Chinese. Well, I try to avoid doing that, so I cannot going to go even further into the issues of some sort. So what I really is, and I put a short note, is Hong Kong has issues related to its anti-Xi Jinping type rule. And they even call it a China Nazi because the people in Hong Kong even say because the president of China is a Nazi. So kind of makes sense to yourself. And the kind of same one is, yeah, the Hong Kong is really pushing for really huge amount of independence. I don't know. The problem is that if Hong Kong gets some independence, Macau goes down with it too, which is gonna really upset China because you kind of afraid if Hong Kong falls, Macau's gonna fall next, and there's gonna be fear. And let's see why. And then why China do not want that to fall. Also, it's a sea state too, so because they're descended from Britain, so it kind of makes sense for them. And they got Macau, as you know, is just in the same issues as Hong Kong. Did you end up going for hand over there in '99 or some sort? But the difference is, Macau is heavy pro Beijing because they're kind of afraid that in these the premier office of Macau is technically taking way harsher punishment than Hong Kong guys that in try to force a democracy. Because the reason is though, China, we want Macau to be in like the Monaco of China, and losing that will end up hurt the Chinese economy so much, and then the cause in a complete turmoil, or even worse, economic collapse. So this is why I think the premier of Macau is just try to end up try any separatists in the Hong Kong zone sort will go for the harsh beating, if not or death sentence, instead of the education camp. So because it's so harsh and thorough of the what they're trying to do here, it's really not nice there. So it's kind of makes sense. So yeah, this whole time being this whole time controversial is because, well, as you know, it's China, and China has a lot of history issues as well with even hosting the games. The last two times China holds in Beijing, yeah, this is in the Cantonese region, and also China's also planning to convert all the different Chinese dialects to Mandarin to get rid of it to avoid uprising. So, which, as you know, that's ethnic cleansing. Yeah, but they do for all the other ethnic Sunnis in China, which, as you know, that's technically a war crime. So, here's the thing right now. It kind of, even worse, democracy in mainland China is outlawed because of Taiwan. So, to make one less sense right now, to the compare to contrast, and I know what's going on right now in this bid. It's so controversial. It's also a first three-country bid at this point. Taking three countries, which is comes China, Hong Kong, and Macau, and I recognize as three sovereign states. And then it's for me anyway. So they're fun for sure. So it's unlikely to win this for 2036 and some sort. But they might possibly win for 2040 though if they get the cards playing right. Because and let's see why. Yeah, Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau might be hugely watch on for the 2040 Olympics. I'm really on the watch on that very thoroughly. Sure. European side right now, they're going to have four bidders. One of them is Budapest, the Hungarian Republic. So they have worse luck. It even holds the record that they have most losses of bids on record for the Olympics. So any chance to win is technically 0% for the Huns. Italy, for Florence Borg, Borgana? Have it Borgana? You have it's technically Florence or Torino. Technically is Northern Italy for the summer games. Well, Florence and Florence itself is probably a low probability to win it. Torino did hold the Summer World University Games back in the 20th century twice. Not once, twice. Give you the end of a snapshot. So, yeah, they held twice. And it is kind of cold, and it kind of same one though, because Torino is kind of built mostly for winter, and they even held the 2006 Winter Olympics, too, so it kind of makes sense. And now when there's Copenhagen, which I might say later on in the Youth Olympics, so stay tuned for that. And then Germany. Germany might possibly, Germany might end up mentioned for 2040, so stay tuned for that. And the final one for North America is Toronto and Montreal together. Well, here's the thing, though. Canada is looking into 2030 Commonwealth Games, so the basically it's India and Nigeria. So for hold the Centennial Commonwealth Games, but here's the thing: Canada in the Olympics has kind of been technically kind of hit and miss since 2010, so it's possible for them. Yeah, for 2040, the only news stories on the late for 2040 so far is when these Africa bids and even Berlin, not Berlin, Germany, we could cruise Berlin. Germany will start first. Germany is a whole time nation bid. They might possibly win for Germany because they have the Germany technically has the gold mine and menus which Olympics has never been seen before where it is. And also, Germany has the good garment of some sort, aka called the Fatherland, in the end of which makes sense for Germany itself and then look at for the end of for hosting Olympics in 2040 is because of this. And then another potential bid for 2040 is Africa. I know. Let's start the new ministry capital first. The new ministry capital for 2040, even though the location in there is in it's a new smart city located in Egypt, and then they end up right next to Cairo. LCC they end up planting this city to move himself to a new city to avoid revolutions overthrowing his country. This is why he tried to move his capital to a new smart city based in Egypt to avoid the possible new revolutions or government overthrows. So which makes sense. And and speaking of that, it's why Egypt's very stable. They're very prone to huge, massive line protests in Arab Springs. So it's kind of see why the security around this area is so extremely fragile for the whole Olympics. So this kind of makes sense. Another was Morocco. Morocco's also been a little bit, teeny bit sports watched because of human rights violations. And also Morocco's also part with Spain and Portugal to hosting the FIFA World Cup in 2030. So it kind of makes sense to that too. Well, until this game be 10 years, Marrakesh, Rabat, or, or Casablanca living in Morocco for 2040 Olympics. So it's possible there. This is anyway. And also one final one in Africa is South Africa. I don't know where, but problem is South Africa is so corrupt. Yeah, even worse, South Africa has to have issues keeping the lights on in their country. Construction is running on hold. Oil and gas and water and others for the end of use of power has been overtook by the government and usually just got led to corrupted leaders and either by each power supply companies. The country itself is so extremely corrupt. If you remember back in Rio 2016 Olympic bid, it's also corrupt within the name one. It is because of somehow they use the supporting approval. South Africa might can do the same way, but they have a really long road that they had for they get this thing in reality. So yeah. Anyway, for 2038 Olympics, there's only one city, one country, and one city, multiple cities in there, and only one country. Switzerland. Yes, Switzerland is right in the target dialogue, which is now in a process dialogue right now for Switzerland hosting 2038. We see they're gonna go for going for budget cuts. Yeah, from the source of inside the gates. So yeah, and I found out at the end of those budget cuts might harm them a little bit, but I do not think it's gonna prevent them from hosting it. Even there's a referendum gonna end up going through for the bids, and I kind of think this being appealed by the Swiss Parliament, and see why. Anyways, at the end of it's so true right now. At the end of where it is, the possible Olympics in Switzerland for 2038 has been rising. This is kind of really one time for that for sure. Yeah, the last not least to go to the 2030 Youth Olympic bid as well. If I get this pop up, hold on. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, finally got it. So, with the answer they end up have. Yeah, India is also being for 2030 big Youth Olympics. I think they might withdraw from that in the future because in the end, India is also bidding for the Commonwealth Games in 2030 in the same area. So chances that India hosting Youth Olympics is now Techie Slim links to the Commonwealth Games bid. If they lose the Commonwealth Games in 2030, the chances of hosting Youth Olympics is now back to the highest level than ever, and they might use the Youth Olympic bid in 2030, like the Commonwealth Games game bid in 2030, to use a launcher towards the Olympic Games of 2036. So that's technically what they're looking at. So it's not for sure. Indonesia, yeah, Indonesia's also been for this. If we know for New Centaur area from earlier in this video, just rewind the video back in about New Centaur and otherwise you don't know where it is. Another region of Indonesia is Jakarta. If we know the issues with Jakarta, rewind the video back about Jakarta and about issues like that related to this. So yeah, I'm not going to explain much further in Indonesia and so on, but add a little bit extras. Jakarta itself in the micro support in the Sumatra state of Palmberg, like it did 2018 Asian Games. Yeah, yeah. The hotel games is successful, but renovations might be needed, so it kind of makes sense. Also, the histories of political history, and otherwise, they had to rewind the way back and they know where it is. So let's just continue on. Next one is Johann Bator, which is in Mongolia. Mongolia is technically classified as technically the most isolated country. Not isolated. That's North Korea in Turkmenistan. My bad. So I mean the most. I think the most lowest amount of populated country on the mainland on record, but the lowest density record there. So it's kind of spacious. We're a spacious country in some sort. The reason is, yeah, Mongolia has not much of a big population, which is kind of surprising why they even got independence in the first place back in the 20th century, despite they don't have a big population at all. So the reason is Mongolian culture, the within the Mongolian steppe, descended from Genghis, is really that makes sense. So to some sort, Mongolia is kind of stable in the moment. It just supports the same type of government and the same from the U.S. It's similar to Belarus until the political change was almost aligned to Russia. So yeah, so kind of obvious to say here. There's some sort. Mongolia is kind of squashed between two evil countries, and flying to there is going to be just a horrible mess. Because they literally had to go layover for evil countries, and I do not think the Olympics can trust. So it's kind of the same one now. Mongolia has no bad record at all for them, but the problem is because of how low the population is, and the support is technically almost not there. So it's kind of a little bit issue for them for sure. And next one is Bangkok and Chonburi, Thailand. The technically Thailand has multiple to hell amount of the squeaky clean type in the political science and also political type moves. Sticks to the Thai monarchy and it being so thorough and also so technically they're meant to be so that try to keep the Olympics clean the way it is. Bangkok can easily host it if they don't undermine the human rights violations that they have in the past. But so technically, it's such as some political crises. The population there and others in this being at least a squeaky clean image a lot in Thailand. Mind the people there would eat their diets are kind of bizarre there. So no. And then got Europe. First one is Sarajevo. Sarajevo hosting the 1984 Winter Olympics, as you know, is a technically it's a triarchy led by Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbians. Yeah, technically, Bosnia is in a hybrid regime because they're not only fully democratic, things that co-eds and Bosniaks, but also Serbs is technically authoritarian. It's almost a Nazbol rule in Srpska. Sarajevo is also split from West Sarajevo to East Sarajevo because of Srpska. It makes sense. The Sarajevo and most of the venues there is so heavily destroyed. So anyway, they're from the Bosnian War, and they kind of even big views of Srpska's independence in the rise of Bosnia. In my case, Sarajevo, they're going to end up going for a complete split of some sort. Sarajevo is also the trilingual religious issues too. But with the co-eds hosting the Catholicism, Roman Catholic, Serbs hosting the Eastern Orthodox, and Bosniaks are technically Sunni Islam, which is going to be similar in the scene in 2030 with Indonesia and Turkey. So, so it kind of makes sense that the what we're looking at here. Turkey's Bosnia has a stable history in the post-independence of Bosnia. Yeah, because they have a stable things. There's no violence or others ever since. It's been really clean. Exception the Serb side. Serb side has history to the end of joint sides of Serbia, which they allied to Russia, and they don't have a clean image there. So it's kind of even 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 Serbia's history is based on Yugoslavia, which it has not had exactly a nice record there too. So it's kind of makes sense. So yeah, so so it's kind of what we're looking at is probably gonna be overwhelmingly since they have a really tough road ahead for them. Next up is Copenhagen, Denmark. Copenhagen is one of the most happiest, one of the top five most happiest nations of the world, which means there's no issues at all for them. The for politics, right violations or otherwise, it has no issues, which is good. The only issue the way to this bid is the whole time bid is on low budget. That means they don't have money to go for high budget things. Despite now the future Olympics of some sort, we need a very high budget. Copenhagen cannot keep up with that, which is kind of cause massive issues with the bid. The Youth Olympics is giving another concern there for Denmark. They just don't have the money to host the Olympics, so let's see why. And then the next one is going to be now into North America with Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Tonjor, Mexico. Mexico City have a multi-country, multi-city bid. The only issue Mexico is not only the clean sort, it's the only issue is the drug cartels. The drug cartels in Mexico is so thorough and so brutal, is they literally beat people up and even shoot them and they're not being careful. The kind of the torture on there is going to be more dangerous than Brazil's because they're literally run by a bunch of drug gangs and they either get beaten up or they even not got shot. So security is going to be up to the highest at this point. What's going on there? Mexico's in a huge amount of drug war for decades, so it's kind of a large issue there for within Mexico to the end of knows where it is. And then again, South America. The first one, San Diego, had to rewind to the end of the video back to what I said earlier about San Diego in 2030 because they're not going to repeat this again because, as you know, I already told you already about San Diego. Another one is Cordoba and Monterrey, Colombia. Yeah, Colombia itself is kind of clean, but it is some sort minus for only drug cartels and even paratroopers from the leftist regimes. Some sort. Despite also they have Venezuelan exiles in the end were portrayed in Colombia too. It is known as Venezuelan refugees. So it's also a big issue there in Colombia. So technically, it got the it has technically Colombia has issues of multiple fascist uprisings, drug cartels, communists, and even a bunch of techie gangs from Central America. So taking security there is just really up to the roof for Colombia. Otherwise, the hotel government scenario doesn't mind all these issues has been clean for Colombia, and let's see why. Next up is Paraguay. Paraguay for the Session, the thing that is. The Session is also big for the Pan American Games, as you know. Even hosting the Junior Pan American Games comes soon enough. At the time of this upload, I meant say, which Paraguay has make a minor issue with the communists these days, but otherwise the hotel government in Paraguay to this day is extremely clean. Extremely clean. As you know, related to everything. So yeah. So then it makes sense to yourself. In the bottom bid in India is Lima, Peru. Oh god, I'm gonna tell you a good story about that. Peru. Ooh-wee. That's a good story here. What I gotta say about Peru? Oh boy. Well, I'm going for go for 4 steps for this, and kind of see why. Well, number one is Peru has issues related to human rights in the past. So it's thanks to Alberto Fujimori, a Japanese Peruvian, the lead in charge, and his family is technically really fascist in nature. It's almost up to Japanese states version of statism. So technically, Alberto Fujimori is almost similar to Hideki Tojo compared to the way it is. And they do not treat the people very nicely there back then. So yeah, that's it. The only person that's in the descendant from her, not from him, I try to say, is his daughter. Almost won against Pedro Castillo, which he recently got withdrew into Mexico to cause big controversy because of that, and they end up in the cause of the go for Donna. So yeah, 2 is Peru's infrastructure is just garbage. And then you kind of see why. 3 is the altitude issue. Yes, most of Peru is located over 5,000 feet or 5,000 feet to over 10,000 feet in the above sea level. The problem is oxygen issues, so they end up there might be a huge issue there. In some areas of Peru. If we get outside of the mountains, you can have rainforest, dense rainforest, but in the end we do not know what's in there. So, because we did never go down that far, Peru when they had any seas before. So it's kind of a big issue. So yeah, so that's technically, technically, technically 2. Yeah, I think it's part 2, right? And is it 2 or 3? I can't figure this. I might mark it 3. Yeah, infrastructure, structure issues is 2, so that kind of makes sense. And 4 is the biggest one. Yeah, they had to keep this last in the end for Peru. They in a huge political crisis It ended up being so bad in Peru, it's kind of be politically divided. Here's the thing, one though. It starts with Alberto Fujimori, that is some sort of plus his Atlantic coalition now. It faced against a lot of communists. And they despise communists because they didn't see them as just technically as normal rebels. And they can see why. Their countries almost got overthrown, and then thanks to the communists and uprising there. Oh yeah, also Peru's also fighting communists in their own separate war too. In which in those internal conflict of Peru, they faced against communists, similar to the situation as they had seen in Paraguay. So, which is also a minor issue too. Yeah, Peru has had to face against a lot of leftist, communists, and socialists combined in Peru with one side. Even also the old President Pedro was to support the political party of Free Peru, which is pro-communist in nature, so it kind of makes sense. Good thing he got thrown out because of the political turmoil that the result for him, and no one likes him, so they can cause a flat exile into Mexico. And it caused more controversial relation to this. This political, it kind of feud. This political turmoil in Peru is it ended up being so bad and so thorough, so bad and so thorough. In the compare of my words, it's literally almost caused Peru to go into a political civil war, which kind of say one out is pretty bad. Technically, this both sides of political points it's right in the limits of the political Cold War, so some sort. So the end of one political party is to try to be against the other political party, and it goes in the insane thing for the other way around. This is worse than the U.S. that we're going through right now, where the political party disorder that just might cause turmoil for all sides. So technically, yeah, Peru is taking on a dangerous path really to a possible civil war. So yeah, so Lima, Peru is currently in a similar issues on the end of what side you're on, you're always going to be beaten up. So yeah, so it's kind of like a political nightmare in the country. Also, there's this, and I'm not just saying this is going to be issues of human rights, but I'm kind of not been ruled out on that one. Also, because Peru is also hosting the Pan American Games next, with the replacement well, of Colombia, obviously, which is strange to me, but it makes sense for them. So yeah, so technically, Peru is taking in a political catastrophe which has never been seen in Olympics history. So let's see why. So yeah, so any chance of Peru that might win this is really slim. If it does have a good advancements in bit in watch on at this point, and otherwise it can easily win, but it's gonna be have a good build for comeback despite with the political turmoil that Peru is going in right now. So yeah, so let's be watch on at this point. Also, I might mention about some bunch of the withdrew bids in there for Youth Olympics and Olympics as well. I might want to try 38 in the Winter Olympics. There's no withdrew cities because there's only one bid. So for 2030 Youth Olympic bid, the only two withdrawal cities, which is Kiev and Odessa, because of the war. In the Kazan in Russia, like I said before, was really because of the war and even Russian sanctions. Technically, Russia is pretty much banned for hosting bids because of that. So, yeah, let's see why. Yeah, now they're finally gonna get back to 23-6 and withdrew and canceled the rejected bids. Yeah. Yeah, the first one is Chengdu in Chongqing, China. I think the reason is though is technically turmoil at the time, and then they kind of decided to cancel. And that's when they canceled is Madrid, Spain. Madrid, on top of Barcelona, they withdrew because of I think political turmoil and political referendum failed. So to see why. Yeah, Ukraine and the Europe just reminds us a little bit about Ukraine. London. London withdrew for 2036 out of surprise because they're more focused on 2040, which probably they will not win either. So because of what we're looking at right now. So I think this might be a major no go for London. Poland, on the Poland is issues is because the whole entire country is at risk of the Russian attack. So because of security reasons, they might not even host there. And then the final one is Mexico as an opening hosting the even though Mexico already for the pandemic, not usually big bit just rewind the radio kind of back into Mexico as I said before. There the reason why Mexico withdraw from the 2036 bid is kind of because of the more focus on the use of big bid for 2030. But you get more details in the rewind this video back to earlier in the part of about Mexico itself with the same bit. So 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 for the conclusion right now, this is it for all the bids and the some sort of withdrawn is still it's only confirmed in potential at the same time. So hope you like it in this video that I found out for sure. But hosting Olympics is not an easy choice of some sort and of some sort. Yeah, IUC session is going to be extraordinary, if not, it's going to be 2026, 2027 somewhere. And for the summer, for possibly for 2030, Youth Olympics on 2036 and 2040 Olympics, so I'm stated for that. For the Winter Olympics in 2038, I might not see likely into 2029 because of where it's at. It's exactly heading to right now because of the next Winter Olympics in Marino. So it makes sense. So host Olympics is not easy. Had the right amount of support, money, and also have no issues in the right down the road. And it had to be clean with kids in there. So see how hard that is. And about mention itself. So yeah, I hope you like this video. Hope it's in the something interesting with the relate towards the end of about a little support there. Otherwise, they hope the base goes better and it's gonna make you feel good for the band, feel bad for it, and I hope to get more support. Yeah, this kind of got you a little bit, a huge amount of detail about it, and then they end up is all about each bid because if I know more information and awareness of each other bid, and I might go have a I might go for next update in a couple years time, but for the next set of bids. But that's in a couple years, so I'm not being worried about it right now, or in nearby short term future. I'm not being worried about it right now. So otherwise, close out this presentation. Hope you like my video. Get a like and subscribe. Ring a bell to never miss on more of my upcoming videos. So it's so nice it for this video. I hope you like this video. So see you in the next video. I'm Josh Human. I'm finally am out of here. And otherwise, it's beep beep beep. wherever you live in, it's night or day, wherever you live in, for watching this video. And I hope that they have a great time. And otherwise, to say, I'm Joshua Cameron, and I'm finally out of here. And see you next time. Bye for now.